It's a beautiful day out here today, so I figured I would do this outside. I'm just going to adjust the camera a little bit. And what I wanted to talk about today is the idea that thoughts do not mean anything. And this goes along with the same idea from the previous 2 days, where first we started off with objects mean nothing to me. Um, and then once we did that, we said, okay, well, since objects mean nothing to me, then how do they have meaning? Well, we give meaning to those objects. And the same thing goes with our thoughts. The first thing I wanted to do is address a question. I'm very mesmerized right now by these cool. I love this time of the spring because we have these carpenter bees. I don't like what they do in my house because they bore little holes in things, but they're just really cool to watch. And they're buzzing me over here right now because they're not like happy. They're very territorial, and when they uh, with each other, they'll like do these dive bombing things, and it's pretty cool. And they'll kind of try to intimidate me. They'll just sit here and like bzzz right in front of my face. They're pretty harmless, I think, unless I would like to kind of swat at them or anything. But I don't bother with them um, because, well, they're really cool and they're actually really amazing pollinators. So they're pretty harmless. But anyway, I get distracted, but I just think they're really cool. But so I wanted to address a question that I received on my YouTube account regarding yesterday's video. And the question went something along like this. The person was asking, have I experienced anything bizarre happen to me in trying to re-understand things? And I addressed it at the time. I was trying to think, well, nothing bizarre as far as, like lightning hasn't come down and struck me, or I haven't, nothing striking has happened, but things have changed in my life, how I see things differently, um, and how I experience things differently because of my beliefs have changed about them. Because again, we give meaning to everything around us. Otherwise, there is no intrinsic meaning in anything. Um, we base that meaning based typically on our past experiences, unless we become aware of that, and then we're able to see things in the present. And it's a practice. So I wanted to address his question again here because I've thought about it a little bit. And what I've come up with, what my answer to him was that this whole thing started with me, Jesus God, about maybe 15 years ago. I was taking yoga. I started yoga. Oops, I'm going to move this because I'm getting this little rainbow here because of the sun. Um, I had started yoga and I was doing it every day very intently. And it was a hard yoga class. It was a hot yoga class. And it was very physically strenuous, emotionally strenuous. And I'd been doing it for quite a long time. And one particular pose, Warrior Two, if anybody has done yoga, it kills your quads and everything hurts and it's, really, really painful, if you will, staying in that pose for a really long time. And my teacher at the time always said, just stay. Whatever you're experiencing, just stay. And so I had that in my mind. But every time I did this pose, I eventually fell out of it. But one day, it was like really, really hot. I remember I was sweating like crazy. I was slipping and sliding on my mat, but I was staying and I was fighting it. But I was fighting it. And the other thing what he used to say is, he still says, is find the ease within the effort. So that was in my mind too. But I was staying and I was fighting it. And I did that up until that point. I was fighting. I'm going to stay. This is going to work. And as I was in this pose, and I had part of me saying, get out, very loudly, like, abruptly, I heard this little voice, if you will, or a thought came up, and it just said, stay. And this happened at the same exact time as this other loud voice was telling me, get out. I was like, holy shit, what the hell? What is that? Like, how could I, be having two different voices at the same time telling me two different things? And that made me realize that I'm not my thoughts. So that day, I chose to stay. I picked the other thought instead of the other one that I was having. And that started me on this whole journey. Um, so I just wanted to kind of uh, say that because that kind of addresses the question. And the second piece is the most recent abrupt change I've seen in maybe my behavior or how I experience things was based on an airplane ride I was taking. I was flying back from LA a couple weeks ago, and it was a Southwest flight, so you always don't get to pick your seats. It was a packed flight. I don't think there were any seats available, and we were in probably like the later B's as far as lining up. So all the window seats were taken when we got on the plane, and all the aisle seats were taken on the plane, and there were two of us. So, well, not all of them, because we were able to find a seat with an aisle and a center seat. Those weren't all taken. So I took the center seat, and my girlfriend took the aisle seat. And there was a gentleman sitting there, and he had the window open. I was like, okay, this is fine as long as I can see outside, because the reason I love to sit in the window seat is because I just love to see the outside. I love to watch the topography and the terrain and just the beautiful land I fly over from the East Coast to the West Coast. It's just gorgeous. And so that's why I like to sit there. But anyway, I wasn't sitting there, he was sitting there. And I thought that was okay. I might have to adjust this because the sun keeps changing on me here. I didn't anticipate this. Hold on one second. And it's windy, but that's okay. So we're just going to do this readjustment. Maybe that's better. That's better. All right. So he was in the seat anyway, and I was in the center seat. And like I said, I thought, well, this is okay. At least I can see, something, at least the outside. And as we took off, the window was up. But then as we got into the air, he just closed the window. He closed the shade on the window. I was like, oh, okay. Well, so I kind of bothered me for a couple minutes, and I was like, well, maybe I should ask him to open the shade. I don't want to disturb him, but I'd like to see outside, So I asked him, and he was very rude to me. I remember thinking, I don't exactly remember what he said, but he kind of abruptly opened the shade. Like, okay, fine. So we did that. And so I looked out the window for a while and stuff, and then later on down the line, he just closed the shade again. Fine. So, well, it wasn't fine for me at the time because I was smoldering about it and creating this story in my mind like, what a jerk, Like I asked him to open the shade and he wouldn't open the shade, and he's sitting there and he's just, looking at his little phone, his little movie. It's like, why can't he open the shade for me? So I smoldered for a while about this, probably most of the flight. And then I remember later, as we were getting close to landing, I asked him to open up the shade, and he said, no, I don't want to open up the shade. And I asked him, why can't you open up the shade? We had this little verbal altercation back and forth, and it started to get a little bit heated. And at that time, I was like so upset. I just wanted to take him and physically take his head and slam him against the window. And I didn't, obviously, because if I did, I would have been plastered all over the internet and in jail, and I would be famous right now. But I didn't. And I forget, I ended up just letting it be, and I sat there. And as I was sitting there, I started to think about these ideas and think about, okay, why am I so angry about this window shade? What's the big deal about this window shade? I can, deal with not having the window shade open for a little while. And instead of like pushing it away and saying, well, I'm just not going to deal with it, and F him, and I'm just going to sit here, I'll be fine, and I don't have to think about it, and he's a jerk, and all that stuff, I reframed my thoughts about it. I recognized that I had a story in my mind, and the story that I was telling myself was making me angry and upset that this person wasn't opening up the shade for me. And the story was around the likes of, well, he's rude, he's inconsiderate, he's being a jerk, that type of thing. But when I recognized that I was telling that story to myself and realizing that it's just a story, I changed the story. And it wasn't like I physically said, well, I'm not going to believe that story anymore, because that offers resistance. It was more, I just offered an idea to my mind to think about, an alternative. And the alternative was that, well, okay, so, maybe he needs the shade closed because he's afraid of heights. Or maybe he needs the shade closed because he's, I don't know, afraid of planes, and he feels more, in control when the shade is closed, or something like that. So I created a few of these stories, and I have no idea whether they're real or not for him, but just in creating those stories, I was able to create some understanding of, maybe he's not such a bad guy. Maybe he has his own reasons, and it's really important for him to have this shade shut. And that calmed myself down. That again, with also just some focused breathing and relaxation, but that calmed myself right down. It brought my energy back down to a very calm place, and then I was okay with it. And so by doing these exercises and learning this about the idea, very introductory idea, is that my thoughts mean nothing to me until I create meaning for them, and objects mean nothing to me until I create meaning for them. It's universal through the whole life experience. Once you're able to recognize that, then you're able to question your current thought system and your current belief system if it's not serving you, and retrain yourself to have new thoughts and new beliefs. And your feedback mechanism is your feelings. So use your feelings as a guiding compass, if you will, for the direction that you want to go. So when you're feeling good about something, then you're in line with your thoughts, your beliefs, and your inner being, your inner intuition, whatever you want to call it. You're in alignment with that. When you're feeling, not so good, I don't want to use the word negative thoughts, because thoughts aren't neither negative nor positive. Again, we give meaning to them. But when you're feeling something's not right, then you're not in alignment with maybe your thoughts or your beliefs or where you want to go in life. So we can use all this to reshape our lives. And this is the first step, was for me anyway, was to go through these lessons. So that's why I'm teaching them to you. So all right, so with that, I'm going to go to the fourth lesson. Excuse me for a moment. I'm just going to read it. And I'm actually probably going to read the whole thing here because I think it's useful. So lesson 4 is, these thoughts do not mean anything. They're like the things I see in this room, on this street, from this window, in this place. So again, we're creating a paradigm where these thoughts that we're going to have in our head don't mean anything to us. And the idea is to not try to come up with thoughts, but just any thoughts that you have when you're practicing this, or throughout the day, 3 or 4 times a day, perhaps you just kind of do this, is any thought that you recognize, because the majority of our thoughts just continuously run through our heads constantly. That's fine. But this allows you to start to recognize those thoughts. And so when you recognize a thought, just recognize what it is. You could say what it is. Like right now, I'm trying to have a thought. I can't have a thought because I'm concentrating on this. But if I were to look at the tree, maybe I might have a thought that it's beautiful, and it is. And that what I would basically say to myself, or out loud, is just that this thought of this beautiful tree doesn't mean anything. And then you would move to another object, and another object, another thought, or another thought that you're having, and do the same type of thing. And it just helps you recognizing one, that you have thoughts, um, two, that you can extract them out of the whole um, sea of thoughts that you have, and be able to uh, look at them and choose them, I think, or dissect them a little bit, and that's very, very helpful. So I'm just going to read this. Unlike the preceding ones, these exercises do not begin with the idea for a day. So in these practice periods, begin with nothing, noting the thoughts that are crossing your mind for about a minute. Then apply the idea to them, which the idea is these thoughts do not mean anything. If you're already aware of an unhappy thought or unhappy thoughts, use them as subjects for the idea. Do not, however, select only the thoughts you think are bad, because then you're applying judgment. You will find if you train yourself to look at your thoughts, that they represent such a mixture that, in a sense, none of them can be really good or bad. This is why they do not mean anything. In selecting the subjects for the application of today's idea, the usual specificity is required. Do not be afraid to use good thoughts as well as bad thoughts, quote unquote. None of them represent your real thoughts, which are being covered up by them. The good ones are but shadows of what lies beyond, and shadows make sight difficult. The bad ones are blocks to the sight and make seeing impossible. You don't want either of these. This is a major exercise and will be repeated from time to time. So we'll do this over and over again. In using your thoughts for application of the idea for today, identify each thought by the central figure or event it contains. For example, this thought about X, whatever it is, does not mean anything. It is like the things I see in this room or on this street. So it is like what you did from the previous exercises. Don't examine your mind for more than a minute or so, because then it becomes stressful and laborious. And since you're not experienced at this, avoid the tendency to become what can happen is as you think about it, if you think about a thought too long, you'll tend to get preoccupied with that thought and tend to actually maybe kind of daydream about it. You'll create other thoughts and ideas and go into this like wormhole. So you don't want to be doing that. You just want to take the thought as it is, as it comes to you, recognize it, and just indicate that this thought means nothing to me, and then move on to whatever other thought you might pull out of your consciousness. So that's it. Easy peasy. Very powerful, and just a continuation of what I was showing you yesterday. So if you guys have any ideas, please let me know. Please like and subscribe, because this will go on YouTube. Also, for my Facebook viewers, and I'll probably put this on LinkedIn as well. I'm going to put it all over the place. I'll probably put a link to YouTube, because Facebook is miserable to try to find, like, if you're looking for specific things. And on Facebook, I have a catalog of these videos where you can jump to the first one if you're interested what the first one was and you can't find the other one. So you can jump to the first one, second one, third one, and this happens to be the fourth one. And I'll continue with that and catalog those videos in YouTube. So you guys have a great day. Again, like and subscribe. If you have any questions, please let me know via either here or YouTube or wherever you might see this. And you have a great day. Enjoy your day. All right, bye-bye.